Chris, we have to talk about a very unfortunate issue. It's obvious that it has to be addressed. I don't know the full details of what happened with Dianne Morales' campaign, but obviously there was word that a handful of members of her staff were attempting to unionize, and she decided to bring the hammer down, and now it's essentially cost her her campaign.
So
if you can speak more to that, again, we're very fortunate that we do have a very good relationship, with Andrew Yang's team. And, unfortunately, he's not pro-union, but I think a lot of his supporters are. We have to do whatever we can. I do think Eric Adams would be the worst possible outcome in terms of the next mayor. But I am curious as to, from just your perspective, what really went wrong with Dianne's campaign?
Well, first, is this something you're familiar with, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I was one of Dianne's first endorsements, early on endorsements, and I still stand with her 100%. When it happened, she texted me. She texted me and said, straightforward, that she is not a union buster and she's not any of the things that people are making her up to be in the media or on social media. And I respect the fact that she took the time to even do that. I know how stressful it is to be in a leadership position and things fall apart. And that's the problem with the left, to me.
Eat their own.
Put it like this. There's several things I would address when it comes to this situation. I've been in the organizing world for a short period of time. I still consider myself a rookie, but it didn't take me that long to learn that the organizing world is ugly. No matter what movement you're in, it is very ugly. And, we throw the word solidarity out there all the time. We throw the word accountability out there all the time. But we also got to hold ourselves accountable to what is real solidarity on the left. And I don't have an issue with her staffers trying to unionize. And I don't think she does either. She supports them trying to do it. The firing, that's a whole nother conversation. Whatever reasons why she fired the staffers, we got to get from her. But from my opinion, the way things were handled were totally wrong. That's just the bottom line. They should have never handled it the way they did. Going publicly, going on Twitter, the protest to the campaign office. This is certain things that we shouldn't do, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but it could have been handled internally. It could have waited until the primary, 20, 30 days before the primaries, and now the staffers are getting front page on the New York Times. Now we're talking about the staffers more than we're talking about the candidate, and it doesn't make sense to me. I'll be honest, from my own personal experience with Dianne Morales, last year throughout the pandemic, she stood on the front lines for multiple movements, not just Amazon workers, undocumented workers, every different demographic. She was on the front line. I didn't hear that from or see that from any other candidate. I didn't see them out there in the streets. I didn't see them out there protesting. I didn't see them at rallies. That's the only thing that really separates her from the rest, to me personally, that I didn't hesitate to endorse her. I knew who I seen last year that supported workers in time of need, and not just workers, everybody in the time of need. And that was Dianne Morales. And we can't just forget about that and throw that all away, because there's been some discrepancies inside her campaign. I hope that they're able to work it out. But, from my perspective, the things were handled totally wrong. We got to stop running to Twitter, doing things like that, because that just destroys not just her campaign, but other movements as well. There's been several movements over the course of this year that have been taken down just like that.
Yep.
There's a few different, people have disagreements and different values and morals. And then they go to Twitter, they go to social media, and then everything falls apart. And it's not right. It's not right to the leader. It's not right to her. And I think that it should have been handled differently. And that's just my take on it, Other than that, I hope that she still is able to climb out of there and become the mayor of New York City, because I can tell you now, the rest of them forget about it, and that's how I feel,
I mean, my only thought now, and this is just from being in this sort of disgusting swamp that I've been swimming in for the past 2.5 years, is that now thinking about it, this almost sounds like it was done to her. This almost sounds to me like she was somehow set up. Either there was somebody who infiltrated her campaign. That's what I'm thinking. This was something that was done to her. And that's unfortunate. And I wish that there was a way to, kind of follow the money chain and figure out how that happened. But this is seemingly more and more sinister to me, actually.
Well, yeah, some of the staffers are now working for some of the other candidates now, and it's like
listen, I think
that's sabotage. She was sabotaged.
I don't like to have to just put names out there, but if anybody thinks that Maya Wiley is progressive, I don't know what you're looking at or what you think you're, paying attention to. It's not true. And she's actually she's the candidate that scooped, I guess, at least one, if not multiple staff members.
Because what I'm curious about is of the other candidates.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be a candidate. It could be whoever their corporate backer is, whichever candidate's corporate backer.
Correct.
Whoever it is that feels that they are next in line is probably the person who sets out to gain from sabotaging Dianne Morales.
Chris, I think you bring up a very good point, and this is something we were discussing the other day. The problem with a lot of grassroots campaigns, especially on the progressive left, is that there's a difference between being in a leadership position and being in an activist position. And a lot of times, if you are an activist, but you're not actually an organizer or a political leader per se, you end up in a situation where if you are unhappy with a circumstance, you allow it to boil over, you allow it to become a trending topic on social media because you must air your dirty laundry because it's a need for affirmation. There's these situations where it isn't handled in-house the way that it should be. And not that activists aren't important, they're extremely important, but knowing those differences in a campaign to run it effectively, I think is what really makes a huge difference. Not everybody is capable of leading a unionized effort against Amazon. There are a lot of people, I have no doubt, that are part of your coalition that are phenomenal activists, but they would not be able to handle the responsibilities, the pressures, and the pitfalls that come with being in a position of authority. And I think that of all the mistakes that Dianne probably made with her campaign,
she trusted the wrong person.
She probably trusted the wrong person.
And that's what it will always come down to when people are legit.
Yeah, and listen, hopefully, from my perspective, it is a learning experience because I still think that she's got a very dynamic personality.
I like her very much,
and I do think that in the future,
he wants her to run for Congress anyway.
I want her to run against Jeffries. I think that somebody's got to take on Akeem. And I think with her ability to build her name recognition, depending on how she ultimately comes out of this, I do think that is a great next step. And listen, a lot of times
he was trying to encourage her to do that when she was on the show.
I was saying that after the fact, if in fact she didn't win. I was suggesting
if you don't win, you'd be really great.
Well, it's not easy. Well, listen, the first time you run for anything, you running for Congress the first time attempting to unionize in Bessemer, a lot of times that first try, you do get knocked down. But the question is, how do you get back up? And getting back up is the key because a lot of people don't get back up. But I do think we've taken our lumps as a organizing movement of working class people that we've taken enough lumps where we now know the score. We know what's coming. And now we just have to be better prepared for it. And I think that's the learning experience here. How do you feel?
Exactly right. If you can find somebody on this plan that you agree 100% with, please let me know. We got to understand as well. There's nobody on this planet, not even your own parents, that you're going to agree 100% with on issues, on different issues, on any issue. And like you pointed out, when activists and leadership have disagreements, and within their respective organizations, it shouldn't be a public argument. It shouldn't be a public statement.
Right.
It's just like a marriage. You don't want everybody throwing their opinions into your marriage because now you're sitting there thinking about, wow, and it can destroy your marriage. It happens. The same thing when it comes to organizing. I have my own internal woes. the same people that I started up with are not. Some people are not here. A year later,
What?
These things happen. These things happen on the left, and these things happen within these campaigns all the time. It doesn't have to become public, is what I'm saying. The way it was handled, the social media thing, now they're dragging her on social media. It's just unprofessional to me.
Which is why, and by the way, it's completely counterproductive to any sort of progress. But which is why I think it's so intentional.
And I feel terrible for her because you watched the debate last night, I assume.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, she was so out of her element, and she looked so nervous. And she was at, I was telling Jen, she was all the way at the far end of the stage, and she probably thought that she was off the base of the camera line. And as it turns out, she wasn't. And there were many times where they caught her like shaking and stuff. And I'm like, God, she's
really been thrown.
Yeah,
she's really been thrown. They've really sabotaged her.
Yeah, and it sucks. And it really does. And again, just the whole field, Chris. From Scott Stringer evoking Tara Reid as a reason to suggest that oh my God. At that moment, I'm like, dude, drop the hell out of the race.
He was justifying sexual harassment by saying, well, Biden did it, so it's okay.
That is exactly what he did.
Oh my God.
And I'm just thinking, well, you know what? He comes off in such a,
that's like, so gross.
He's a small little man, and I hate saying that, but he's just one of those
Napoleon complex.
He's got 100%. I don't know what Donovan is doing, what exactly he's running for, and don't even get me started with McGuire. The guy looks like
like I know these people.
Chris knows who I'm
yes,
talking
well, because
about.
he lives in New York.
McGuire might as well be running to be the head of a hedge fund, as far as I'm concerned. I think that the race ultimately at this point does come down to Yang and Adams, and where it ultimately breaks, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are one which way, but I'm hopeful that there's always this dependency of sorts that the elected official is what drives where things ultimately end up going. I don't agree with that. I actually think that the grassroots, the people in the streets, the working community, no matter who is in elected office, with the exception of maybe somebody like Andrew Cuomo, most of the time, the elected officials are going to respond to where the people are going. And I think regardless of who ultimately ends up becoming mayor of New York City, the movement for workers' rights, for healthcare, things of that nature, that is only going to grow bigger and bigger. That cat's not getting put back in the bag. Do you think that regardless of who wins the mayoral race in a few weeks, that there's nothing that's going to stop this from continuing its ascent? It would obviously help significantly if a non-corporate progressive would be able to win the race, but nevertheless, that I do think is something that is going to be a result regardless of who ends up winning.
Right. It is definitely. That's why most of them are saying the same thing. Their responses is, if we're talking to mental health, everybody was addressing mental health. I believe there's nothing that's going to stop us from organizing. I can tell you that I'm not stopping. And the different things that the organizations in New York are involved with, they're not stopping. If anything, they're going even harder now because we're still dealing with this crisis. And, I don't know. It's going to be a tough decision. I'm trying to think of, even if it isn't Dianne, who I hope it should be, would be, I don't know who else I would choose. And I don't know how they will affect. I know it will slow down the progress. If it is the wrong person, they're more corporate than non-corporate. So we just got to make sure that as organizers, as activists, that we continue doing the work that we're doing now. No matter who's in office. Bill de Blasio didn't stop me from continuing the fight against Amazon. The next mayor shouldn't stop anybody from continuing their fight and whatever they're involved with.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.